Greetings from past paradise, where we reveal the unknown tales and secrets that history has left behind. Today we're showing the inner workings of the White House, where tradition and privilege meet in unexpected ways. Did you know that presidents and their families still pay for meals? Or is opening a window practically disallowed for security reasons? Even more shocking is that not all first ladies adapted to life in the White House with elegance. Some made demands for benefits that caused controversy and defied the law, creating a lasting impression on history. We're exploring the intriguing and sometimes startling world of presidential luxury, from the ostentatious eccentricities to the unexpected sacrifices of living in America's most famous residence. Presidents have to pick up after their dogs. Obama received much unexpected attention when he told second graders a straightforward, relatable story about his time in the White House. But it wasn't because he was talking about international issues or introducing a new policy. Instead, he claimed to clean up Bo's feces every night while on walks. Naturally, the kids let out a collective "ew" and chuckles. But it's just part of being a responsible dog owner, no matter who you are, even if you're the President of the United States, Obama said with a grin. Under Obama, Bo, a Portuguese water dog, immediately gained popularity. Bo was often featured in press briefings, public gatherings, and holiday pictures because of his fun nature and curly black and white coat. However, underneath the staged photos was a nightly ritual that brought back memories of Obama's more straightforward, grounded times in life. In subsequent speeches and interviews, the former president would reminisce about such peaceful strolls around the White House grounds. Sometimes, in the silence of the evening, he'd gaze back at the lighted residence, the historic home of every U.S. president since John Adams, and feel a combination of appreciation, responsibility, and humility. He carried the weight of history with him, even though he was clutching a poop bag. He reportedly said, "Walking Bo at night gave me a chance to breathe. It reminded me that some things, like cleaning up after your dog, kept you humble no matter how busy or complicated things got." Windows are off limits. Nothing compares to opening a window to allow in refreshing air and the aroma of blossoming trees when the weather is pleasant. Most individuals enjoy this little daily comfort without giving it any attention. However, such basic pleasure is forbidden for the first family residing in the White House. Why? Safety. The White House is primarily a fortification, even though it also functions as a dwelling. Every window, hallway, exit, and entry must adhere to strict security regulations. Open windows may be dangerous because someone might see inside, cameras could record sensitive moments, and in the worst cases, they could even pose a physical threat. The Secret Service doesn't take any risks since its goal is to protect the president and his family at all costs. They find it inconceivable that a window could be opened carelessly. However, there are certain annoyances with the limitation. Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, openly said that one of the easiest things she most eagerly anticipated after leaving the White House was opening a window at home or rolling down the vehicle window. For many, such seemingly little deeds represented reclaimed freedom. This detail highlights a deeper reality. Privilege and power often have unstated prices. Living inside the White House may seem unexpectedly restrictive, despite its grandeur. Those in the highest posts usually secretly want the small things, like a breath of fresh air. You can have the prom there. Prom night is usually magical. It's a time for dresses, tuxedos, uncomfortable dancing, and memorable moments. Imagine, however, holding your prom in the White House's East Room rather than the local event center or the high school gym. It sounds like something from a teen fantasy film. Thanks to Susan, the daughter of President Gerald Ford, it was a dream come true for one fortunate class in 1975. In that particular year, Susan Ford was a senior at Bethesda, Maryland's Holton Arms School, a prestigious all-girls institution. Also, her prom was hosted inside the White House rather than a banquet hall, as with other courses. It was the first known prom ever held at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, making it a historic first. Through food sales and contributions from the community, the students helped pay for the event. demonstrating that even a prom hosted at one of the most famous homes in the world could have a DIY, down-to-earth vibe. Naturally, Secret Service personnel were there, but they could blend in without being seen as the kids posed for pictures in halls filled with presidential paintings and danced to disco tunes. Adding music, decorations, and young enthusiasm, the East Room became one of American history's most distinctive and unforgettable proms. Susan Ford and her friends danced under chandeliers previously appreciated by heads of state. At the same time, most students spend their prom night in hotels or leased halls with neutral flooring and predictable decor. It was legendary, not just cool. The White House was not a center of international diplomacy or politics for a single night. It served as a setting for lifelong adolescent memories, music, and laughter. It's allegedly haunted. Former President George W. Bush's daughter, Jenna Bush, made headlines when she disclosed that the White House is haunted, a revelation that could have fit better in a ghost tale than a political book. The house is renowned for its political influence and historical importance, but it is also said to have been the scene of weird, inexplicable events. Numerous White House tenants have had spooky encounters that have left them questioning the paranormal. For instance, former President Harry S. Truman is well known for claiming to have heard and seen inexplicable things. Even British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who was visiting the White House in the 1940s, spoke of strange experiences. However, the most well-known stories are about President Abraham Lincoln's ghost. Numerous people have reported seeing Lincoln's ghost, or at least sensing his presence, when strolling the White House's hallways late at night. The increasing collection of unsettling tales was augmented by Jenna Bush's experiences at the White House. The mansion was full of ghosts, she told a magazine, describing a particularly eerie experience in which she heard opera music from the fireplace in a room where no one was playing an instrument. Barbara Bush, her twin sister, also related a chilling tale about how she once heard the eerie sound of a piano playing music from the 1950s, but no one was there to play it. The myth that the White House is a location where history, and maybe the ghosts of those who created it, linger in the shadows has only been strengthened by these spectral encounters. There is only one piece of original furniture. If you know anything about American or British history, you've probably heard of the War of 1812. After the American Revolution, this fight took place in the early 19th century. The British march on Washington, D.C., when they set fire to the White House, was one of the most startling moments of the war. In response to American advances in Canada, British forces, under the command of Major General Robert Ross, overran the capital in August 1814. The White House was among the many parts of the city that they burned, leaving it in a burning rubble. The fire that burned the White House and nearby structures destroyed most of the original furniture, artwork, and records. Nearly everything that had been part of the White House was destroyed. But in the middle of the mayhem and fire, First Lady Dolly Madison stood out as a hero. She stayed inside the White House, trying to salvage everything she could as the fire advanced. She commanded that a painting of George Washington, one of the most critical documents in American history, be saved from the fire in a stunning display of bravery and foresight. The only thing Dolly Madison could preserve in time was this portrait of Washington, which had been hanging in the White House for years. A picture of Dolly Madison was eventually displayed in the White House next to George Washington's in honor of her valor. This symbolic gesture of preservation demonstrated the value of leadership and history despite devastation. Because of Dolly Madison's fast thinking, a piece of the country's history was preserved, and the two people's pictures serve as a moving reminder of this significant period in American history. Pet stains can stick around. Numerous American presidents have had dogs while in office, and as every pet owner knows, these furry friends may sometimes create a mess. Pets provide happiness and difficulties to a home, whether they lose hair, leave muddy paw prints, or have the odd mishap. Despite its grandeur and historical significance, the White House is no exception to this rule. However, the fact that these presidential pets' messes aren't always cleaned up right away may surprise some people. The Obama family's relocation to the White House served as one example. According to a reporter who followed the Obamas carefully, the carpet still had noticeable urine stains when the family arrived. The cat that had lived with the Bush family was responsible for these stains. It serves as a little reminder that mistakes happen sometimes, even in the most famous home in the nation. Although it's reasonable to think that the White House personnel would always keep things immaculate, the author pointed out that the carpets need additional care. Even though the White House symbolizes political power, it's interesting that some areas of the house are more like a typical home than people might think, with pets running around. Every day, life happens right in front of people. This serves as a reminder that even the most famous address in the country is still a home, where accidents happen, staff members have a lot on their plates, and pets play. The White House seems more accessible because of these little human experiences. It might come with a cool command center. Widespread conjecture and interest have resulted from the numerous theories and rumors circulating over the years regarding what occurs inside the White House. Some aspects of the White House are kept secret for national security concerns, while others are kept secret because the public isn't given complete access to the premises. In 2010, however, the curiosity reached new heights as construction started on the White House grounds and conspiracy theories emerged. Although construction workers began working in several White House areas during this period, the public could not see many advancements. Walls surrounded the structure to prevent inquisitive eyes from seeing inside. According to the official explanation, the team was upgrading outdated plumbing and electrical lines, among other repairs. However, the rumors continued to circulate despite this. Some people came to believe that the changes were much more covert. Large quantities of concrete and heavy equipment were reportedly being brought in, which made many people question if something much larger was being constructed below. Conspiracy theories went rampant, with some speculating that the building was in preparation for a hidden subterranean command center. As early as 1962, during the Cold War, when the U.S. government started thinking about measures to safeguard the president in case of a nuclear attack, there had been reports of hidden bunkers and emergency command centers under the White House. Although there isn't any concrete proof to back up these allegations, the White House's history of secret areas, construction, and secrecy only served to heighten the curiosity of those curious about what may occur. Mice and roaches inhabit the house. It should come as no surprise that bugs may enter the White House, even if it's not something people consider very frequently. After all, with more than 2 centuries of history, it is among the oldest structures in the United States, and even the best-kept houses sometimes host unexpected visitors. Using routine pest control techniques, which include monthly chemical spraying throughout the facility, is the only approach to fight this. In 2017, however, the public was taken aback when it was revealed that the White House had formally asked for an exterminator as part of their list of required repairs, addressing mice that had infiltrated essential spaces like the Navy's mess hall and, even more worrisome, the Situation Room, where crucial national security talks take place, was part of the request. Some people were alarmed to see rodents in such delicate areas, but the tale didn't stop there. According to the study, roaches were also found in the West Wing, one of the White House's most well-known locations. Many people's perception of the White House as a site of immaculate cleanliness and grandeur made these disclosures shocking. It seemed almost out of place that bugs could infiltrate such a famous structure, particularly one that houses and works for the President of the United States. But it serves as a reminder that even in the most well-known residences, pest management is a continuous and sometimes disregarded chore due to the reality of ancient structures, particularly ones with as much traffic and activity as the White House. There are no free meals. The title may hint at the plot, but we'll go into more detail, particularly on the complimentary food. At the end of every month, the president gets a bill for their family's meals while residing in the White House. Some people may be surprised to learn that taxpayers do not fully pay for living expenses in the most well-known home in the country. The first family must pay for personal expenditures like toothpaste, toiletries, dry cleaning, and eating costs. When Nancy Reagan, the First Lady from 1981 to 1989, got her first bill, she acknowledged that she was surprised by the expenses. The amount shocked her because she had not been told that such personal expenditures were expected to be covered out of pocket. Although the White House personnel meet the first family's requirements, these services aren't always provided for free. These expenses, which may mount up rapidly, must also be paid for by the first family. There is a bright side, however. In the case of state functions and public meals, the president is not personally responsible for the expenses. Taxpayers fund these public events as part of the presidency's duties. Therefore, public dinner parties, which often include dignitaries and international leaders, do not incur additional costs for the president, even if the first family may cover their own private dinners and home expenditures. Ultimately, it comes down to balancing public obligations and private expenses. You might have to make your bed. Still, it's not necessarily true that living in the White House means you're fully off the hook when it comes to housework, particularly if you're a youngster. Michelle Obama made it clear that her daughters, Malia and Sasha, would not be excused from basic responsibilities simply because they were living in one of the most renowned residences in the world when she and her husband, President Obama, moved into the White House. One of the first things Michelle did was to order the White House personnel not to touch the girls' mattresses. She was adamant that Malia and Sasha should make their beds daily, as they had done before their father was elected president. Other age-appropriate responsibilities, such as tidying up after themselves and assisting with little housework, were also required of the girls. For Michelle, this was about developing character, independence, and a feeling of duty regardless of their new environment, not simply regularity. This parenting style was noteworthy because it highlighted something we often overlook. There are still regular family activities and regulations to adhere to, even inside the White House's walls. Even if you are the president's kid, Michelle Obama felt that doing things yourself should teach you unique lessons in self-reliance and discipline, even when staff can do almost every home task. It is a welcome reminder that parenting principles may endure regardless of the situation. In a location full of riches, Michelle Obama's attempts to keep things grounded were remarkable and unexpectedly familiar to families worldwide attempting to raise responsible kids in a world full of diversions and shortcuts. Even first children sneak up on roofs. This one always surprises people, not because a president's youngster would be inquisitive enough to go onto the White House roof, but because you think such a location would be strictly forbidden and monitored. However, based on the accounts of past first children, rooftop escapades were not completely unheard of. Several presidential sons and daughters have disclosed throughout the years that the White House roof was used as a covert hiding spot, a unique opportunity to evade the Secret Service's constant surveillance briefly. President Gerald Ford's son, Steve Ford, recently acknowledged that he and a buddy sneaked up to the top to hear Stairway to Heaven, transforming the famous building into their little performance stage beneath the stars. It may have seemed harmless, but it was a brave move in a building where every step is monitored. Furthermore, Steve wasn't the only one having recollections of rooftops. President George W. Bush's daughter, Jenna Bush Hager, also admitted to sneaking up there. Tucked away in one of the safest locations on the planet, it's where she and her now husband exchanged their first kiss, a rather romantic detail. These tales serve as a reminder that, despite the presidential spotlight, children are still children, even if they may seem to be innocent adolescent mischief. They find methods to resist covertly, seek out solitary times, and create semblances of normality in bizarre settings. For some first children, the White House rooftop became a haven for music, first love, and brief moments of freedom despite the cameras, guards, and constraints. It's technologically challenging. The President of the United States, regarded as the most powerful person in the world, naturally needs access to the most advanced, dependable technology. You would think the White House would have perfect Wi-Fi to handle international video conversations and secure communications. After all, losing a connection in the middle of a crisis or when speaking with a global leader would be more than simply inconvenient. It may even be fatal. Surprisingly, however, that hasn't always been the situation. The Obama family freely acknowledged throughout their tenure in the White House that the historic home's Wi-Fi coverage was far from ideal. Michelle and Barack Obama made light of their daughters, Sasha and Malia's, displeasure when they found that some regions of the home had little to no internet access in interviews. Like everyone else, even the first daughters had to contend with Wi-Fi dead zones while attempting to watch a program, do schoolwork, or browse social media. The White House personnel did pay attention after the Obamas brought up the problem in public. According to subsequent reports, attempts were made to increase Wi-Fi coverage, especially in the family rooms utilized more often. It's unclear, however, whether the upgrades were made across the enormous 132-room estate. Even contemporary routers struggle to transmit signals from one end to the other when there are several levels of security architecture and walls as thick as those found in a castle. It serves as a humorous but realistic reminder that although living in one of the most famous houses on the planet, you are still susceptible to the same technological annoyances as the rest of us, such as buffering films and lost connections. It comes with a dentist. At first glance, it may seem strange, but the White House has a doctor on staff. The building itself features a tiny medical suite. The White House Medical Unit, which is situated in the basement, is fully furnished to manage any situation, from minor wounds to more severe medical requirements. That's not all, however. The cellar contains several surprising areas, such as a carpenter shop, a florist studio, and a dentist office. A dentist office may cause some people to scoff, but it makes perfect sense when you consider it. The first family needs regular dental exams like everyone else, and having a facility on site guarantees they can receive care discreetly and promptly without leaving the property. The more on-site services available, the better, since the president and their family always prioritize security and privacy. In addition to the medical facilities, the basement houses a florist's shop to meet the ongoing demand for arrangements for official functions, state dinners, and daily home decor. In the meantime, the carpenter shop assists with anything from restoring vintage furniture to setting up new shelves or adding unique elements that each first family has asked for. During George W. Bush's presidency, a doctor who worked in the White House said he always looked forward to seeing the former president. Interestingly, they discussed daily life, family, and health, never politics. These exchanges were a reminder that even at the highest levels of government, presidents still value a pleasant, informal discussion with their physician. Entrances and exits are a nightmare. With its opulent architecture, substantial fortifications, and almost unparalleled security, the White House is sometimes likened to a castle. However, like any fortress, its vulnerability increases with the number of entrances and points of entry. The lack of private entrances or exits at the president's and their family's residence is probably partly due to this. It may not seem like a huge deal initially, but consider living in an environment where privacy is almost impossible. With employees rushing through the corridors, maintenance personnel, Secret Service officers, and continual visitors for meetings, tours, or official events, the White House is never quiet. Even a quick stroll from a bedroom to another area of the house might seem public with so much foot traffic. It is difficult to completely unwind without worrying about who could be around, since rooms are shockingly close to the first family's private quarters, available to workers or visitors. Former members of the first family have sometimes joked about slinking out of their chambers or arranging their moves to avoid running into others. In a house that never sleeps, it wouldn't be shocking to hear that some people even looked into hallways before leaving in search of privacy or tranquility. Therefore, although the White House may seem to be a beautiful residence from the outside, there are particular difficulties associated with living there. Privacy is not a given. It is a luxury. Additionally, for those who live at the most well-known address in the country, even moving freely throughout their house might seem like traversing a public area. Coffee is hipster-friendly. The trendy, hipster-style coffee shops that seem everywhere may make some people nervous, but there's no denying that they offer good coffee. The White House apparently couldn't help but join in on the fun. The White House bought around 150 pour-over coffee machines to meet the demand for high-quality brews as the trend became popular. How could someone need so many coffee machines, you ask? When the White House calls, Even providers of expensive coffee equipment cannot refuse. The Massachusetts-made pour-over makers needed to be meticulously crafted, and the manufacturer had to go above and beyond to fulfill such a significant and esteemed request. Naturally, however, this was no typical client. The order was for more than simply coffee makers. It was for furnishing the world's most renowned home. When the coffee makers were finished, they weren't just sent to the White House in their regular configuration. No, the presidential seal was engraved on these highly modified pour-over coffee machines. That's correct. Each of the 150 coffee machines received a special White House touch, enhancing the already elegant coffee-making procedure. Therefore, the White House still serves some excellent hipster-friendly coffee, presidential style, despite the trend being commonly linked to hipster coffee shops and artisanal brews. It comes with a masseuse. As everyone knows, being President of the United States is a tough job. It's simple to observe the toll it takes when you compare pictures of leaders before and after their tenure in office. The stress and responsibility might be too much to handle, with choices that regularly impact the country and the globe. Naturally, the White House has special methods for assisting the president in relaxing. A nightly massage, which is accessible anytime the president desires it, is one of the most opulent benefits provided. According to a former president's staff member, massages were a common technique for several presidents to unwind after a demanding day. Nevertheless, not everyone made the most of this privilege. One of President Lyndon B. Johnson's servants revealed a humorous but insightful fact regarding the president's massage routine. According to the servant, Johnson regularly fell asleep during massages, not just for snoozing. Long after the massage, he would sleep so deeply that he wouldn't wake up until around 5. As a result, the staff member had to wait for the president to wake up much longer than anticipated. This peculiar routine exemplifies the erratic character of life in the White House. Serving the president required more than simply giving care. It also meant being ready for whatever task, no matter how odd or late the hours. The White House provides a little respite at the end of each demanding day, which seems appropriate in a profession that demands so much of the person at the top. Thermostats create tension even in the White House. As we've seen thus far, the White House serves as both a comfortable and opulent home for its occupants and a significant place of work for the president and his staff. Like any workplace, some variables, like the temperature, might make it less than ideal. Imagine the additional difficulty of maintaining everyone's satisfaction at the White House, where the president's preferences may affect the whole structure, even if most of us can identify with the hassles of temperature conflicts in an office environment. President Obama, for instance, often changed the temperature in different rooms to suit his preferences, although not everyone agreed with his decisions. Rahm Emanuel, his chief of staff, was not as passionate about warmth as the president was. According to Emanuel, Obama's favorite rooms to heat up were so warm that you could grow orchids in them. The temperature may sometimes rise, so employees were more concerned with remaining cool than completing tasks. This incident serves as a reminder that, despite its high level of prestige, the White House is also a setting for routine office dynamics. The White House is no different from any other workplace in terms of temperature preferences, long hours, or the unavoidable stress that comes with high-pressure work, with the obvious exception that the stakes are much greater. A few amusing arguments may sometimes result from the difficulties of balancing comfort and functionality, particularly in an environment as prominent as the White House. It got its name relatively recently. Some may be startled that the name didn't always refer to the magnificent edifice we now call the White House. The phrase White House is a very recent addition to the broad perspective of history. Before the early 1900s, the presidential mansion was officially known as the President's Mansion. It wasn't until Theodore Roosevelt took office in 1901 that the title White House gained widespread usage. Roosevelt, always the trendsetter, is said to have been the first to adopt the name White House on his business cards, and it swiftly became popular. The word stayed in popular culture because of Roosevelt's usage of it. Roosevelt even instructed his staff to use White House on all official papers, to guarantee the name change was recorded in all official records. Although the name change from President's Mansion to White House may not seem like much, it represents a pivotal moment in the building's history. According to the White House Historical Association, Roosevelt's use of the word reflected his character and may be an attempt to project a more accessible contemporary picture of the presidency. However, the exact motivation for Roosevelt's decision remains somewhat unclear, and historians continue to conjecture whether it was a political maneuver, a matter of personal taste, or just a practical means to designate the House. In any case, the term White House has grown so recognizable that it is now inextricably linked to the idea of the U.S. president. Staff would record your shows. Watching your favorite programs has never been simpler thanks to the abundance of streaming services like Netflix available today. Almost everything is available for you to view anytime you choose. However, things weren't always so easy. You had to either record episodes on a DVR or hope they would return on TV later before the popularity of video streaming. Although this was true for most of us, it wasn't a significant issue in the White House even before DVRs were introduced. Consider President Lyndon B. Johnson's wife, Lady Bird Johnson. Because of her hectic schedule and professional responsibilities, she often had to miss the iconic Western TV series Gunsmoke, which she loved. To guarantee she didn't miss her favorite program, the White House staff would record it for her to view later. Even while this sounds like a very straightforward request, it begs the intriguing issue of how they could record TV broadcasts before the development of DVR technology. It's not exactly obvious how the crew managed this. Still, they presumably employed a mix of early video recording technology, such as reel-to-reel tape recorders, to film the episodes. This procedure would have been far more difficult before digital recording than today's one-click solutions. Even the most basic amenities were given priority for the first family, as seen by the staff's commitment to making sure Lady Bird Johnson could watch her favorite program even if it required going above and beyond. However, how they were able to set up all of this at a time before the conveniences of contemporary technology is the true enigma. It comes with an unmanned kitchen. Consider hiring a personal chef to make your meals each night. Isn't that like a dream come true? However, it might be challenging to resist the urge to cook, even for the president. There is an unmanned kitchen in the White House near the first family's residence. This gives the president and their family the unique opportunity to cook whenever they choose. When the first family wishes to be more involved in dinner or breakfast, the kitchen is there, but chefs are on standby to prepare dishes as required. During Bill Clinton's presidency, there was a noteworthy tale of a presidential family utilizing this kitchen. At the moment, First Lady Hillary Clinton gave the media a personal anecdote. She mentioned that she regularly cooked fried eggs for her daughter, Chelsea, in the mornings. It was more than simply providing for her kid. It was also about keeping things normal during an extraordinary period. Chelsea loved fried eggs, and despite the hectic life schedule in the White House, Hillary wanted to preserve certain aspects of their daily routine. Despite the several levels of security and personnel, this modest gesture of cooking for her daughter reminded her that private moments may still happen within the White House. It also draws attention to the difficulty of balancing the basic joys of family time and home life and the rigors of public life. They only stock domestic wine. The White House solely offers American wines, which may surprise many. They prefer domestic goods, as the White House serves as the official abode of American presidents. Serving American-made wines is, after all, a means of honoring the nation's agricultural variety and promoting regional wineries. It still seems a little surprising, given the history of exquisite wines connected to European countries, notably France, renowned for its top-notch vineyards. The White House did contain a collection of French wines before the administration of Gerald R. Ford. The long-standing diplomatic and cultural connections between France and the United States were reflected in the custom of offering French wines. Several former presidents held European wines to entertain foreign dignitaries and visitors. French wines were a mark of sophistication at state dinners and other formal gatherings due to their reputation and long history of excellence. However, Ford offered solely American wines at the White House when he assumed office. Today, most White House wine cellar wines originate from areas renowned for making excellent wines such as California, Virginia, and Idaho. That being said, there are still times when international leaders bring in European wines for special celebrations. The White House is still open to savoring the tastes of other countries that have influenced wine culture worldwide, even with the move toward supporting American winemakers. It never housed George Washington. As the country's first president and one of the most important founding fathers, George Washington is renowned in American history. However, many people are astonished that Washington never resided at the White House. He authorized the financial architectural designs and chose the site for the executive home, but he passed away in 1799, just before the building was finished. The first people to live in the White House were John Adams and his wife, Abigail, who had been elected president by the time it was ready for occupancy. The home was still under construction when the Adamsons moved there in the autumn of 1800. The White House was unlike the opulent picture we have now, and many rooms remained incomplete. The East Room lacked furnishings and decor, so Abigail famously used it to hang washing. The couple only occupied the house for a few months before Thomas Jefferson's inauguration. One of the most persistent mysteries related to the early days of the White House surrounds the cornerstone, which was set in 1792 during the construction's early phases. George Washington even participated in the ceremony that marked the building's symbolic start with its cornerstone. However, the cornerstone inexplicably vanished after the White House was completed. It has never been located despite the efforts of scholars, historians, and construction workers. Whether it was covertly taken during construction or buried behind layers of restoration, no one is aware of its current fate. The first family gets early access. Families living in the White House get access to movies before they are released in cinemas, which is another special benefit besides having their private movie theater. Hollywood companies often send early copies of forthcoming films to the White House for special screenings. It's always fascinating to observe what kinds of films different presidents like, even if this luxury isn't shocking considering the authority and impact of the office. President George W. Bush, for instance, reportedly enjoyed the Austin Powers films. Yes, those outrageous spy comedies. In contrast, President John F. Kennedy was well known for his love of James Bond movies and anything featuring John Wayne, which reflected his penchant for bravery and classic American toughness. Perhaps the most significant movie buff was Jimmy Carter, president from 1977 to 1981. He allegedly hosted a movie screening roughly every 3 nights while he was in office. He liked a variety of movies and wasn't afraid of stuff that was provocative or pushed boundaries. Carter made history when he viewed Midnight Cowboy at the White House Theater, making him the first U.S. president to witness an X-rated movie while in office. The film's rating was eventually altered to R. This variety of film tastes demonstrates how, like everyone else, presidential families manage to find time for enjoyment and relaxation despite their demanding schedules. It also humanizes our perception of the nation's highest position. After all, who doesn't enjoy a nice movie night? Moving in is a breeze. First families have previously moved into all 3 floors of the White House in around 6 hours. The enormous team of employees working behind the scenes makes it feasible, even if it seems almost impossible to the normal individual. Security guards, decorators, movers, and White House staff all work in unison to make sure the house is changed quickly from the preferences of the entering family to the style of the departing family. It's interesting to note that the new president is often given a private tour of the house before the rest of the family ever arrives. During this tour, they may pick where they want their items and furnishings to go, or ask for little aesthetic adjustments to make the historic house seem more like home. You may change anything, within limits of course, from the layout of bedrooms to the design of drapes or artwork. But why the haste? The solution is straightforward. No one is ever waiting for the president. Cabinet meetings, consultations with international leaders, and national security briefings often occupy the first day in office. There isn't much time for gradual adjustment or cautious unpacking. Almost quickly, the new president and their family must be at home and prepared to work. On Inauguration Day itself, this hectic changeover often takes place. Staff members are already busy moving boxes, preparing beds, and filling the pantry as the departing president attends the ceremony and festivities. When the newly elected president returns from the parade, the White House is prepared to serve as both a residence and a command center. It's among the quickest and most intricate movements you can think of. You can slide down the banisters. Life doesn't have to be about formal dinners and history classes just because you grow up in the White House. Growing up near 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue may provide plenty of unanticipated joy if you know where to look. Michelle Obama once said she was initially concerned that the White House wouldn't be an excellent location for kids to grow up. The rigid routines didn't evoke childhood joy, the ongoing security presence, or the extremely formal atmosphere. But those anxieties swiftly evaporated when she discovered her children, Malia and Sasha, laughing and sliding down the banisters. Despite its briefness, it reminded her and the rest of us that children will always find ways to be children wherever they may be. Furthermore, they weren't the first to utilize the White House as a play area. The White House was famously transformed into a jungle gym by Theodore Roosevelt's children during his presidency in the early 1900s. The Roosevelt children roller skated across the East Room, roughhoused with dogs inside, and slid down stair rails. Rumor had it that the Bush twins, Jenna and Barbara, had also adopted the custom, scurrying along the halls and using the spacious hallways and gleaming banisters of the ancient house. These tales have become treasured pieces of White House mythology, even if not all are captured in photographs or official documents. And honestly, if they aren't true, they probably should be. Because no matter how magnificent the backdrop, a little innocent mischief reminds us that childhood always finds a way to shine, even in the most powerful home in the nation. It comes with a high-end storage facility. That every family would want to carry a little bit of home with them when they move into the White House makes perfect sense. Even the most powerful leaders want a feeling of familiarity in their home environment, after all. The first family often receives presents and mementos from historical institutions, international leaders, and other dignitaries, in addition to personal belongings. These presents, which include anything from priceless relics to elaborate artwork, add to the assortment of objects that give the White House a more homey feel. But if the previous family leaves and a new one comes in, what happens to all these things? The many objects gathered and amassed throughout the years are kept in a whole storage facility within the White House. This enormous area, sometimes called the White House Collection, contains everything from artwork and rare presents to furniture and personal belongings. Renowned American painters Norman Rockwell and Georgia O'Keeffe, whose paintings have adorned the White House's corridors, are among the collection's most well-known items. Numerous presents from heads of state, such as elaborate sculptures, rare literature, and even historical memories from significant international events, are housed in the storage room in addition to these art pieces. Each piece of history is safeguarded for future generations due to the meticulous cataloging and preservation of these artifacts. The warehouse-sized structure offers an intriguing look into the history of each government. Objects that convey the narrative of the White House, its occupants, and their relationships with the outside world abound throughout it. All of these objects are part of the ever-changing history of America's most famous home, even if many are kept for preservation. First, children have freedom to decorate rooms. Senior presidential family members have the power to alter the White House, as we've previously covered, but there are often other factors to consider. Each president and their partner carefully consider how the workforce and the public will receive specific changes. After all, the media and history scrutinizes decisions in this iconic home. Every decision, whether it's the color of the curtains, the layout of a space, or the artwork on exhibit, tends to represent the first family's values and character. However, things are a bit different with the younger family members. Their children don't have to worry about things like the First Lady and President making sure the White House's furnishings suit their preferences and the image they want to present. When it comes to their areas, they are exceptionally free. Presidential children can arrange their rooms just like youngsters in any other household. For instance, daughters Malia and Sasha made the most of their space when the Obama family moved into the White House. They adorned their walls with images and posters that evoked a sense of home and painted them in hues they adored. Of course, like other children, they needed their parents' permission to move rooms, just as in any other home. However, the appeal of having a room in the White House is that it gives kids a unique opportunity to express themselves freely, even though it's a very formal and public setting. Cash is rare. A little-known fact about living at the White House is that presidents and their families rarely carry cash. Given their extensive access to financial resources, it may come as a surprise, but it makes sense if you get the practicalities of presidential life. Most of the first family's costs are not immediately covered by their income. Instead, they usually don't reach for their wallets, whether they need to buy a last-minute present, a fast snack, or even a trip. Instead, the expense is often included in their monthly bill, which is paid using the White House's operating funds. For instance, it's usually explained that a family member doesn't have to worry about making an immediate payment if they go out to get anything like an ice cream cone or a fast supper from a nearby store. This approach also mirrors the White House's operational ease and security, where everything is often meticulously planned, from a private function to a visit to a local grocery. If a president or a family member forgets to bring cash, there's no need to fret. Agents from the Secret Service go everywhere with the president and their family and are often prepared to take over. A Secret Service member would gladly offer a few bucks if the president is short on cash or forgets to use the ATM. The first family can concentrate on their duties without worrying about daily financial issues thanks to this unique arrangement. You can change the decor. Moving into the White House can bring many changes for presidents and their families. Even though the building's interior design is heavily influenced by history, the first family may still make their mark. They may rearrange the artwork, swap out the carpets, or add or remove furniture to make the room seem more like home. Each administration typically makes modest adjustments to match their interests, albeit how much they modify things varies. For instance, Ronald Reagan changed the furniture in the Oval Office when he took the oath of office for a second term. He could have made this choice after being certain he would hold office for another 4 years. These adjustments make the president feel more comfortable when carrying out crucial tasks. However, some presidents decide to keep everything precisely as it was before they took office. For example, presidents like Jimmy Carter and Dwight D. Eisenhower maintained the Oval Office's conventional design and appearance without making any significant changes. Laura Bush, George W. Bush's wife, wanted to order a new rug for the Oval Office to personalize the space once her husband was elected president. During their tenure, the carpet, a pattern that embodies American history and values, became a focal point of the Oval Office's interior design. These deliberate adjustments demonstrate how the White House is influenced by the tastes and personalities of its residents, even if it is a representation of tradition and authority. Movies aren't the only form of entertainment. The first family may relax with some entertainment at the White House, even though it is often linked to important meetings and political events. The Obama family found playing video games a pleasant way to kill time. President Barack Obama periodically joined the Obama daughters to play Wii Sports on the Nintendo Wii. Besides his Wii gaming sessions, Obama was well known for enjoying the popular game Brick Breaker on his BlackBerry. He started using it to unwind during his hectic White House days. Additionally, President Joe Biden enjoys playing games, particularly with his family. He wanted some friendly rivalry while playing Mario Kart with his grandchildren at Camp David. Biden, meanwhile, has made it clear that he prefers family-friendly video games over risky ones. This demonstrates a more human aspect of the president's sometimes harsh job because they, too, need methods to enjoy themselves and connect with their loved ones. Curiously, George W. Bush is perhaps the most passionate gamer. He spent more time gaming than most of his predecessors and often played video games with his grandchildren. "You should talk to me if you want to play computer games," he once said, demonstrating his easygoing and friendly gaming style. His fondness for video games indicates how contemporary presidents use popular culture to relax, connect with people, and escape office pressures. Moments before presidents move in are organized chaos. Even though the White House is a well-known symbol of status and authority, the hours before a new president and their family move in are quiet. According to former White House employees, this time was characterized by orchestrated chaos as everyone rushed to get everything in order. There is much to do, and just a few hours to prepare the whole house for the new occupants. Remarkably complicated are the moving-in logistics. The employees are responsible for ensuring everything is functioning, the rooms are clean, and all furniture is positioned correctly. However, it goes beyond the actual surroundings. The family's dietary requirements and personal preferences must also be considered. For instance, they must find out what the first family enjoys eating, what they like for breakfast, and if they have any particular snack needs. This means the kitchen staff typically prepares meals and snacks ahead of time, depending on the family's preferences. While some staff members are busy cleaning and vacuuming rooms, others assemble certain dishes that the family likes or wishes to try. The thought of all the moving parts that go into this brief but busy time is almost laughable. The days before a presidential move-in are a flurry of activity, from setting up the rooms to deciding on the meal. The staff's effectiveness and ability to manage the pressure are commendable. The honey is local. Seeing a beehive on the White House grounds is one of the most enjoyable of the many surprising and intriguing features of living there. The White House has had a beekeeper since 2009, and the bees make fresh honey on the property. Why purchase honey when you can gather it in your backyard, especially when it's just a short distance from the vegetable garden? The beehive was part of a bigger attempt to promote sustainability and environmental awareness, with the bees playing a critical role in pollination. It's about more than simply honey. It's about promoting biodiversity and a more robust environment. According to legend, the hive is situated next to the vegetable garden, guaranteeing that the bees are occupied with supporting the crop's growth. The first families and their visitors' meals are enhanced by the honey made in the White House kitchen. A beehive is another example of how the White House distinctively combines tradition, innovation, and a dash of whimsy, even if it may seem odd to consider it one of the normal aspects of White House life. There are unanticipated benefits to living in such a famous and well-preserved location, whether it's the fact that a doctor's office is located in the basement or that fresh honey is made just outside. Like so many things in the White House, the beehive is a strange but lovely touch to life in the house. You can practice your swing. More specifically, the White House has a putting green, but no complete driving range, so your swing will not be tested. Many presidents have enjoyed playing golf, and the putting green gives them a fast option to relax without leaving the premises. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a devoted golfer who reputedly played around 800 holes while in office, erected the White House's first putting green. Bill Clinton utilized it throughout his administration, but was eventually taken away. Since then, presidents have continued to use it. During their time in office, Obama and Joe Biden often played golf on the putting green, fitting in a round of golf. Even George W. Bush, renowned for his strict daily schedule, would practice putting on the grass for a few minutes. That modest green space outside the Oval Office may not seem like much compared to a full course. Still, it has provided leaders of the free world with some peaceful times for introspection, competition, and stress reduction. Even the president is entitled to a short game, after all. It comes with a lot of staff. The amount of effort required to maintain the White House's functioning properly has previously been discussed, but many people are unaware of how many individuals work behind the scenes. Around 3,000 full-time employees support the White House and its functions. This comprises roughly 200 Secret Service agents who concentrate on other security-related tasks like guarding the gates, screening guests, and securing strategic areas within and surrounding the building, in addition to the 500 Secret Service agents who manage presidential protection and security operations. Additionally, the White House employs about 100 staff members, many of whom have worked there during several administrations. The cooks, ushers, florists, electricians, housekeepers, and other workers make everyday living function for the first family. Although none now reside in the White House, as in past times, many have worked there for decades and have a deeper understanding of the structure than anybody else. It's incredible to consider how many people are needed to maintain the People's House, which is a home and one of the world's most important places to work. It requires extensive upkeep. Even though the White House was built in 1800, it is considered an ancient structure by American standards, even if it may not be as old as European castles or churches. Additionally, it needs significant maintenance to remain in good condition, just like any house occupied for more than 200 years. Painting is one unexpectedly considerable aspect of that maintenance. The White House requires around 570 liters or 3 tons of white paint to thoroughly coat its exterior and maintain its recognizable, dazzling white appearance. It's a big paint job. The amount of paint that had accumulated over the years was exposed in 1992 when a significant repair job removed some 30 layers of old paint off the building's facade. It was customary to repaint it yearly for aesthetic reasons and to shield the stone below from weather and deterioration. And when you think about it, applying 30 coats of paint to a structure that size adds a relatively large amount of weight in addition to being purely aesthetic. Even the most minor adjustments may significantly impact long-term preservation for a building as old and often used as the White House. Symbolic and influential. As we approach the end of our investigation into the intriguing dynamics of entitlement and power in the White House, it is clear that the first family's role is symbolic and has significant influence in and of itself. The conduct of several First Ladies has often been examined to the same extent as that of the President, and their special closeness to power has increased expectations for their public image and behavior. Although they are not elected politicians, they often play significant roles in influencing public discourse, supporting causes, or even coming under fire for what is seen as their perceived entitlement or luxury. Their legacy and the nation's future. The public may never completely comprehend the complexities of life beyond the White House walls, but what is certain is the first family's pivotal position and how their deeds, whether polite or contentious, may influence not just their legacy, but also how a president is seen more broadly. It is crucial to consider the demands, advantages, and expectations that accompany such a unique position in American politics while thinking about the most entitled individuals. These people function in a complicated responsibility, desire, vulnerability, and visibility network. Ultimately, each first family story reminds us of the intricate relationship between personal identity, civic responsibility, and the sometimes contentious heritage of entitlement that shapes their historical position.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon